Hello, have I got a book for you? Grab your Starbucks, grab your coffee, grab your tea, grab whatever it is you need, your juice, because this one is a ride. I read a book similar to this last year and it blew me away. It was my favourite of last year. I didn't start YouTube last year. I started it 2024 January. But last year I read a book and it blew me away. And this one has done the same. Stay tuned. Let's go. So, hello everyone and welcome back to Through the Pages with Dee. Where do I start? Okay, let's start here. So I've got a strawberries and cream frappe from Starbucks. We ordered that in. My daughter's treat, thank you Jocelyn. And very much needed, I think, for this one. This review, I can only say that last year I started reading again around June of last year, and this isn't to brag, it's just to state facts that within those 6 months I read around 83 books, mostly mystery, crime, thriller, a few odd fantasies thrown in there. One of those odd fantasies that was thrown in there was The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. That book blew me away. I have no comprehension as to how the author managed to keep up with the story that they were telling within that book, because it was erratic, it was slightly sci-fi, it was some elements of horror. It was amazing. It was such a good book. So if you haven't checked out The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, I strongly recommend that book. I found it exciting, intense, mind-blowing. I was in awe of the author, and it was just such a good book. That was my favourite of 2023. However, today's video, this has happened again. And I've been saying for quite some time now to give you all a hint as to where I'm coming from, and it'll be in the title anyway. But this book, I think, is up for Book of the Year for me. If anything I read after this meets to a similar standard of this book, I will be amazed, because I have been awed by not just this author's style, but the way the story's been told and just how beautiful the prose is. So, as you know, the book I'm speaking of is A Spear Cuts Through Water by JIMENEZ. Literally just finished this today, so it's very, very fresh in my head. It is encapsulating, it's intoxicating, it is beautiful, it's fantastical, it takes you on, as I always say, a journey, but this is a journey. It also involves some elements of a temporal loop. It is phenomenal. So let me start from here. We have the character, who is you. That's all they're called, is you. And we're from a second POV, and we're going through the story with you. But you can see yourself as you, so you could call it me. Has that got confusing yet? Because that's nowhere near as confusing as this book can be, but in a stunning, theatrical way. Slight hint there, but very, very beautiful. So, you're you, and you are talking to your grandma, who is your Lola, and Lola is telling you stories of history, of the past, some of your hereditary past. And you are absorbing these stories. These stories are magical and fantastical and full of things that you wouldn't even believe possible. But then these stories come to life through the other two protagonists of this tale, called Jun and Kima. Now, Jun is from a very royalistic, dramatic, bloodthirsty background from the Emperor. He is the Emperor's grandson, and the Emperor is an evil, vicious tyrant, and he wants control of the Divine City. And he has sought out the moon to do this. And he makes a pact and a deal with the moon. And his deal, or his want within this deal, is to have an heir to his throne. So he cuts the moon down from the sky. So then the moon takes on a human form. But the moon has a love affair with the water. And the reflections that the moon creates on the water and the way that the moon can make the water move creates a love affair. And the moon just wants to be with her love. That's the ultimate goal of the moon. She wants to be with her love. So she makes the deal with the emperor under the assumption that she will get to be with her love. She can come from the sky to be with her love. But that's not what happens. She is imprisoned by the emperor and has made this deal on to give him an heir. But she gives him 3 triplets, and they are known as Sam, or Saam, who is the first terror, then Lubu, or Luubu, who is the second terror, and then we have the third terror, who is unnamed. And these are creating havoc under the emperor's directions around the realms and in the cities. And the people are scared and people are dying for no good reason. And all this while, all the moon, who is now in a human form, in captivity, all she ever wanted was to just be with her love. And this whole tale is surrounded by love. It is just a tale full of love and compassion, and how you just want to be with your loved one and you just want that to be acceptable. It has literally blown my mind. The scenes are eloquently written. There is no constructed chapter form, even though there are what you could call chapters, but there is no actual contractual chapters. You are allowed to pause in the gaps provided by the way that the pages are laid out, but there are no contractual chapters, which I adored. I also adored that fresh setup and take on how to do a novel. Simon Jimenez has just encapsulated fantasy and mystery and magic with elements of Sir Terry Pratchett, with elements of Robin Hobb, even potentially with elements of Stephen Erickson, in this overwhelmingly beautiful, love-stricken tale. But don't get confused. Don't think that this is just some sort of romance novel. It isn't. This novel contains some very, very grim, dark elements, some very detailed elements of cannibalism. But cannibalism with a purpose, not just purely eating human flesh. We're talking cannibalism to consume magic. This is how magic is consumed from godlike creatures, is they have to be eaten, they have to be consumed in order for you to take on that magic. And this is something that the terrors do. There is all these mythical creatures, standard creatures such as an elk and a peacock and a monkey, but they're more than just an elk, a peacock and a monkey. They have more standing within this story of just that. They're also the sort of logo that the warriors for each terror wear. And John is from the peacocks, so he is a red peacock, and he has the tattoo on his face to showcase which particular terror he belongs to. And he has a very sordid past, a very bloodthirsty, violent past. And as we go through the story, he's spending time with what is essentially his grandma, his Lola, the Moon Empress, and he's protecting her. But they formulate a plan for her escape, because ultimately, as I say, all she ever wanted was to be with her love, which is the water. So she needs to escape from this prison she's been held in now for years by the Emperor. And John helps her do that, because whilst John has been outside of her door, guarding, he's had pause for thought to think of who he was and what he did, and could he be a better man. And he decides he's going to help his grandma. He decides that they are going to help her escape, and they're going to get out of there and take her to where she needs to go. And where she needs to go is to the people of the Divine City because she knows that she's not got much longer on this earth. She knows that she's dying. So she needs to get to the people of the Divine City so they can therefore, after she's died, consume her and take on her goddess moon powers and fight the terrors. This is so dynamic. It's so beautiful. The prose is stunning. It is stunning. The book I read last year, The Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, was amazing to me because how the author managed to keep up with that structure of content. We were in a time loop then. That too was a temporal loop, and I was amazed at how the author managed to keep up with everything that was going. I'm amazed how this author has managed to not only keep up with the temporal loop as and when it comes, but to create such a beautiful, stunning environment in such a stunning prose with some of the most eloquent vocabulary I have ever read. It is perfect. If there was ever going to be a book that you could call perfect, I think The Spear Cuts Through Water is it. You fall in love with the characters, and I have to say, John, Kima, the arcs that they go through as characters are sublime. They're outstanding. You are along for this ride. You are along for this journey in each one of these characters' lives. And eventually John and Kima cross paths and come together on what is so heartwarming about their coming together is the formulation of a relationship. It is a gay relationship, and it's the formulation of something so beautiful, so beautiful. It's never in the beginning parts of the book outwardly said, outwardly spoken, but there's hints to it, these beautiful subtle hints of how maybe Kima looks at John, or how maybe John says something to Kima, or how they wrestle, because essentially they are both warriors. Kima is Kima of the Dawari tribe. You know, he is a warrior. He's lost his arm from being a warrior, because the way you have an arm cut off is you either break an oath or you are then considered a dishonourable soldier. So he is a one-armed soldier. So there's also the element of disability positivity brought into this story. The LGBTQ plus positivity brought into this story. Then you have John, who was this slaughterous, murderous warrior who now wants to turn over a new leaf and help his grandma to fulfill this mystical need that she needs to fulfill. But the slow incorporation of the love between John and Kima is so beautiful. The animals, the tortoises, there's a mother tortoise, and she has all these children, and when the Empress Moon fell to earth and took on a human form, she fell onto the back of the mother tortoise, and the mother tortoise requested one gift. The Empress offered a gift, and the tortoise requested one gift, was that she could communicate with all of her children. She just wanted to communicate with all of her children. Sadly, in the Empress granting this gift, it was no longer a gift. It became a curse, and therefore that then made the Emperor take the tortoises, put them on the gates throughout the cities and realms, and they could communicate with each other. So they were used, and they were in essence kept as slaves to do the Emperor's bidding. And it's just, I don't think I have the words, but it is so beautiful. Even though there is so much bloodshed and there's gore and there's detail, it really doesn't affect in that sense, because he creates such a beautiful surrounding, and you have this beautiful play of character arcs that nothing really seems gorish, but when the gore does happen, it's good, it's written well, it's written in detail, but it's not in detail that could in essence put you off the story. It's detail that fits with the narrative. This is just quite possibly the best book I have ever read, in more ways than one. Not just for the story, but for the written style, for the presentation of the written style within the novel, for the author's outlook, for the LGBTQ plus inclusion, for the disability positivity inclusion. for the character arcs, for the mythical creatures. It is just stunning. I really can't talk much more in detail without spoilers. So if you guys want to have a spoiler review of The Spear Cuts Through Water, and I'm chomping at the bit because I have literally just finished this, so I could quite easily do that and go into it properly. So if any of you guys who read this book within the next few weeks, or read this book anytime soon, or are presently reading it and would like somebody to talk to about it, I will do a spoiler review. I don't usually, but I will do a spoiler review of this book, and we can talk, and we can have it in the comments, where we can actually have somewhat conversation about what actually happens in the book, or I can just gush about this and just ooze happiness about this book. Let me just say that Evie from She Was Only Evie, what is not wrong to scream about this book from the rooftops. I was on a live of someone's, and Evie mentioned The Spear Cuts Through Water. Hadn't heard of this book, I'll be quite honest. And then I saw Evie do an interview with Simon Jimenez, and she was gushing then. And she was very, very happy, and it was so cute to watch about that. She was getting to talk to Simon Jimenez because she adores this book. She absolutely adores it. And now I see why. Now I understand. Now I've finished. I wanted something different from the ending, but I generally always do. But I will not say the ending to this book was bad, because it wasn't. It was beautiful. There is nothing that I can say is bad about this book. Not one single thing. I have taken my time. I've taken longer to read this book than I usually would, because this book requests that of you, I think. I think in order for you to fully appreciate this book, you have to treat it somewhat like a Malazan. You have to give it time for the information to settle in. That's how I see it. Anybody out there who thinks differently, by all means, please correct me. This is just my opinion. But I do believe you need to treat this book a little like a Stephen Erickson Malazan book, where you give it time for the information to go in. But once you do that, what seems to possibly be a confusing sort of way that we're going about things, and are we actually ever going to get anywhere, or is any of this actually going to ever make any sense? Believe me, that a lot of things are explained by around pages, I'd say 400. You get full-blown explanations, and might I add, I cried. And then I read a passage out to my daughter, who I've only been explaining this to via my vocabulary. I've just been giving her kind of the rundown of what's happening and my way of doing it. And when I read this passage out, she too cried, because things are not quite as simple as just, and this is something I always love in a good book. I always love when an author manages to do this. When you have an antagonist who, similar to T. Kingfisher, who doesn't necessarily have antagonist characteristics and can be considered innocent and sweet, and not really with an antagonist sense about them. They don't mean to be that. It's due to other underlying factors. That is something that I love and appreciate, and Simon Jimenez has done this in this book. I cannot gush enough about this book. I cannot praise it enough. It is most definitely for me up for Book of the Year. So I can't say any more, because then I'd be going into spoilers. I really want to, but if I do, it's going to be too much. All I will say is if you like small elements of romance, not overwhelming, not info dumping romance, just small, beautiful, plopped in elements of romance. If you like some gore, detailed gore, but written in such a way that even though it's ghastly and it's bloodthirsty and it's gruesome, it's still beautiful to read. If you like fantastical creatures, if you like astoundingly beautiful surroundings that are described to you in such a stunning way. If you like character arcs that are fantastic character arcs, if you love a journey, if you love a quest, this is the book for you. 100%. If you like any of those elements, Spear Cuts Through Water is for you. And I can't say it anymore. I've loved this book, and it's a high rating for me. It's a huge 5. It's a huge 5. So, thank you guys for your time. I always appreciate you. You know I do. I have some new subscribers. We're over 70 subscribers now, which is amazing. It's absolutely fantastic. I love you all. You're my book family. And I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you for coming on over, sticking with me and watching. I hope I don't disappoint, and I only hope to continue to grow with you all. So, have yourselves a great day. It's Friday. If you're going out, I hope you have a great time. If you did get yourself a Starbucks, let's clink. And have a great weekend, guys. I love you all. I've been Dee. And as usual, until next time, I will see you guys through the pages.